You have such a fascinating entrepreneur journey.
Oh, thank you.
But I feel like you can also add a lot of value to our listeners about what you need to run a business, at least to establish it, what documentation, what they can expect to need before they actually start the business.
I decided to go out on my own and open a competitive dance studio. My dad and my husband built it with their bare hands.
That was crazy.
And we were able to start this tiny studio off of 120th Street and 142nd Avenue, across from the airport. It was 1,600 square feet. And then when I finished the second year of law school, I sold the studio. Then I graduated and I went into mergers and acquisitions. And now finally, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, well, in this chapter.
Right.
And that's being an attorney for small business owners.
Reading all the cases you...
Yes. I stopped reading for joy during law school.
Essentially, that's how it happens.
Yeah, I got that back. But yeah, the kids were young, but I always say it takes a village, and that's absolutely true. I had the flexibility of owning a business, and so it's not like I had to be at work in the same way that someone... And I just want to note that it was not easy. However, I also did not set myself up for what I would have defined as personal failure. Like, I understood I have employees, I have a household, I have 3 kids. I'm not going to be president of the SBA.
Today on the FoundHer Circle podcast, we have Danielle Alvarez. Not only is she a gifted entrepreneur, she is also an attorney that represents small businesses. I think that you are going to find such value in this conversation, and I hope you will listen through. Hi, Danielle. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy to have you here. And there's so much to really talk about. Like, you have such a fascinating entrepreneur journey.
Oh, thank you.
But I feel like you can also add a lot of value to our listeners about what you need to run a business, at least to establish it, what documentation, what they can expect to need before they actually start the business. Mm-hmm. So let's jump in on your entrepreneur journey.
Okay.
If you can tell us a little bit about how that started, because I feel like that's super unique. Okay. Not everybody runs a business so early in life.
That's true. So I grew up dancing. And when I was 22, I had been teaching for about 4 years. And I decided to go out on my own and open a competitive dance studio. My dad and my husband built it with their bare hands.
That was crazy.
And we were able to start this tiny studio off of 120th Street and 142nd Avenue, across from the airport. It was 1,600 square feet. And within 3 years, we were expanding to 6,000 square feet.
Wow.
So 12 years of owning that dance studio, it was quite the experience. And I think it was in year 10, well, it was 2020, when I decided... number one, we didn't know what was going to happen. And then number 2, I realized I didn't really have a backup plan in terms of outside of the dance world. So I decided to go to law school.
Wow.
So I went to law school and I did a 4-year program, the JD MBA. And then when I finished the second year of law school, I sold the studio. Then I graduated and I went into mergers and acquisitions. And now finally, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, well, in this chapter.
Right.
And that's being an attorney for small business owners.
Well, we should also mention that you were having babies.
Oh,
doing all of this.
That's true.
Yeah, like
when I started law school, my kids were 6, 5, and 1 already.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I went to law school without any kids, and that was hard. So I can't fathom what it was like to be responsible for tiny humans and also reading all the cases you...
Yes. I stopped reading for joy during law school.
Essentially, that's how it happens.
Yeah, I got that back. But yeah, the kids were young, but I always say it takes a village, and that's absolutely true. I had the flexibility of owning a business, and so it's not like I had to be at work in the same way that someone, who is not the owner has to be. And then my husband is a saint. Our parents are healthy and younger. So we really had a lot of help. And it was also like a one day at a time thing. And I think it's important because a lot of people ask me like, oh my God, like, how did you do it? And I just want to note that it was not easy. However, I also did not set myself up for what I would have defined as personal failure. Like, I understood I have employees, I have a household, I have 3 kids. I'm not going to be president of the SBA.
Right.
I'm not going to do the law review in the moot court. Like, there was an understanding of my best may not be the same best as someone who doesn't have those additional responsibilities. And I did well, but I also gave myself that grace. So I got through it.
Right. How did you come to that realization? Because, I mean, I do know enough about you that I could say you are an overachiever. You have that persistent personality.
Yeah.
Because that takes a lot of self-reflection to be like, okay, it's okay if I'm not, on law or whatever the case may be. What helped you come to that realization?
So it wasn't instant. It wasn't at the start. I did the first semester of 1L, and I was really devastated by my grades. But I got 2 A's and 2 B's.
Right.
But coming from an undergrad where it was like an almost perfect GPA,
Right.
I talked to my counselor and I was like, I don't know what happened. And she's
Right.
like, what do you mean? Nothing happened. You did great. And I was like, okay, so it was that first semester where I felt like, okay, I struggled. Second semester, I was pretty burnt out because it was 2020.
Yeah.
So it was half online and the kids were home.
Yeah.
So it was
Wow.
it was nice that I wasn't away from the kids. The expectation was like in 1L you don't see your family,
Right.
which I wasn't okay with that. So it really worked out in that sense, but of course it's challenging when you're trying to focus on, I don't know, property law and your 1-year-old's pulling on your arm. And then that second semester I was pretty burnt out, and it was Mother's Day, and I was in a classroom in the law school crying, trying to learn constitutional law during the reading period.
Right.
It's just like exam time. And I think something clicked for me that day, and I was like, it's not worth it to suffer through this when, regardless of where I land in terms of class rank, regardless of the experiences that I have compared to people with, again, less responsibilities, I'm still accomplishing something huge. And my goal was not to be number one in the class and move to New York and practice your big law. My goal was, number one, to show my kids that you can do anything you set your mind to, and then also to show my dancers at the time, which was over 100 little girls, that like, hey, you don't have to stop when you meet one goal. You can set another goal and then shoot for the stars on that one too.
Right.
And if that was my goal, then it didn't matter if I'm number one. It just matters that I finish.
Right.
So that was the reset. I'm like, why am I here on Mother's Day?
Right.
And why am I crying?
Right.
I'm like, let me get it together.
That's such an important point, because I think, and I could relate so much in that we think that everything is like the end of the world, right? Like, especially if you've been accustomed to getting the straight A's, like just achieving everything.
Yeah.
But at some point, I mean, I guess now, I don't know how many years out I've been practicing, you realize, well, that's not really determinative of the type of attorney that you're going to necessarily be. I'm not saying go and flunk your classes, right? But whether you're number one or not, like, there's a path for success regardless.
Correct. Yeah.
Also, everyone has different, they aspire to different things. And it's like, I think so many people stress out and think, your life is not going to look the way that you want it to look just because you didn't get the straight A's.
Right.
So I appreciate you making that comment, because I think it's helpful for people that are in law school, or even if it's not law school, it's some other academic endeavor. Like, I think you need to, keep things in perspective.
Yes.
And know that there's not one singular path to
There is not.
success.
There is not. And honestly, it's so impossible to predict.
Right.
It's impossible. You can't even imagine what's out there for you and what's meant for you. And then when it arrives, you're like, and then it makes sense.
Yeah.
So just enjoy the journey.
I know. I wish that was so easy.
I know, right? I wish it was easier for us type A perfectionists.
Yes, if we could come up with how to address that. I don't know.
I
Some
would say-
pharmaceutical.
For me, honestly, it's a healthy dose, a healthy dose of faith.
Yeah.
And a belief that my life always works out. I mean, I have a lot of proof too.
Right.
Right? I have a lot of experiences to look back on and to think, like, if it had gone my way, it would not be as good as it is now.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've come to that realization. I wouldn't say like a long time ago. It's been more recent, but I think in hindsight, everything is 2020, and you're like, wow, like we were just talking about how much I love Gainesville. If I had stayed there, would I have started a business? Would I have 4 kids? Would I have met certain individuals that become clients that have sort of pushed me onto a different trajectory, and it's, I think knowing that everything will work out how it's supposed to, I think it definitely helps with that creeping anxiety or creeping like noise
And doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's also a gift of the 30s because I have
Yes.
changed my mentality, my perspective, my ability to emotionally regulate myself. It's a huge shift.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm 36 now, so like probably like 3 or 4 years where it's like, oh, I wish I was like this when I was younger.
I know.
Imagine.
Go back.
Just
Yeah.
relax.
Yeah. It really,
You change.
yes. And like you stop caring so much about what other people think and are saying. And
I highly recommend you do that very actively.
Yes.
Immediately. Today. That is like such a weight off your shoulders, the freedom of that.
I know.
And it's a conscious decision, for me at least.
Right.
I had to, I had to
everything.
say enough.
Right.
Oh,
I know.
and then it's addictive.
You can like go on a whole
Yeah, for real.
tangent on that. Yeah. So going back, did you always have an entrepreneurial spirit?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in middle school,
Yeah.
do you remember the little plastic like strings that you would make those keychains out of? I sold the plastic string. It was like 50 cents for like this much. I didn't have a way to measure it. It was just like this much, 50 cents for the string. I sold chocolate bars in middle school. I mean, I'd always been very entrepreneurial. And I always had ideas about ways that you could like start this kind of business, that kind of business. So it wasn't, I've also always been very difficult to manage. I've always been, I always push back against processes that I feel are not efficient.
Right.
And it would frustrate me. And this was in class with teachers and across the board. So yes, I think I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I'm not afraid to take risks in that regard. And I think that lends itself to just action, even in the face of fear. And no matter who you are, no matter what you do, action, even in the face of fear,
Right.
is going to move you down the line.
I think that's an important component of, anybody's entrepreneur journey, because if you let that fear overtake the ability to move forward, then you won't ever try.
Right, exactly.
And at what point did you realize, okay, I'm ready to let this, because it has to be like you're essentially caring for your, obviously at the time you did have kids, but like even you started the business before you had kids, it was like your baby.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize, okay, I'm ready to let this go, it's lived its course?
Yeah. So, there's an evolution in everything that you do. You can have a very successful business for 5 years, and then after that, just trends change and things change. For me, the competitive dance world changed significantly. It became far more competitive. We're talking homeschool programs for dancers, private classes, in the upwards of 8 hours a week outside of the classes that the dancers are taking in the studio. The style of dancing change is very popular now. A lot of gymnastics in the competitive dance, and that's not how I grew up. I grew up and it was movement oriented, flow. It was a totally different dynamic of movement, and so all of those things paired together, I lost a little bit of the joy that I had in the entire experience, because you train all year to compete.
Right.
And that's the fun part, because you're building something, right? And you're building up the girls' confidence, their teamwork, their accountability. There's so much that you learn being a part of a team as a child. And then you get to competition and it's just like, it was just so different for me. And so I started to feel a little further removed from it. And before I opened the studio, my plan was to go to law school. So I think there was just a culmination of COVID and those feelings all coming together to kind of guide me and say, maybe it's just time for me to do something different. When I started law school, I did not intend to sell the studio. It was, the intention was to be a better entrepreneur. If I can defend my business with legal knowledge, with business knowledge, then I can be a better entrepreneur and then, do other things perhaps. But when I was in there, I realized that it wasn't just that knowledge that I was looking for, was actually a change. It wasn't easy though. I fought it.
Yeah.
I really had like this internal fight with myself, but I also recognized that I was so stressed out and I wasn't enjoying it. And I said, well, what's the point of that?
Right.
When I sold it, the next day I woke up and I didn't realize I was doing this for 12 years, but I woke up and I like went to search the back of my mind for all the issues that I had to consider that day. And there were none, because there was no longer my problem.
to be so freeing.
It took weeks to stop doing that in the morning. And of course you don't realize you're doing that when you're in it.
Right.
But it was an incredible choice for my life. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah. I want to touch on that for a second about, because you mentioned that you were a dancer and that was part of your identity. Yeah, I would say, because you've done something for so long that is such a part of who you are. How do you become okay with closing a chapter that's been so, like, you've worked your whole life essentially to achieve what, the ultimate, thing. You competed, you've created a successful dance company. How do you kind of let that, I don't want to say go, but be okay in that moment? Like, what helped you get there?
That's a great question. I have not been asked that question. So when I sold the studio, I had a really hard time letting go of that. And I thought all of this, the sunken cost fallacy, right? Like, we think like, oh my God, all this knowledge that I have, all this love for the art that I have. And remember, like, I was a dancer all my life, but I was a teacher for longer even.
Right.
And I love to teach. I never wanted to dance professionally. I always wanted to be in the classroom doing choreography. I would ask Ingrid in high school, I would say, can I just choreograph and sit in the audience? And she'd be like, no, you're on the team. I'd be like, okay, fine.
I guess I'll have to.
I guess I'll do it, but I'm still going to choreograph it. It was hard. So when I sold it, a couple months later in the summer, I decided, I think I'm just going to go and teach and just like freelance. Right. And I did that for about a year. And I really enjoyed that. And I think that was like the segue into letting it go. But like we were talking about before we started recording, my niece is getting to the age where she can start dancing. So I think I'll just jump in on the dance mom side via my niece.
Your niece.
And go back to that.
Yeah. And sort of tap back into that knowledge. And I think, we think it's so specific, like the tools and the skills that we develop in one field are only for that field. But the reality is those things that you develop, those habits and routines and knowledge that you develop during that time will serve you as a better attorney, because you can understand now, a segue into what you do now, which is help business owners.
Correct, yeah.
And you can implement, because it's not only textbook knowledge that you have, you actually have first world experience.
Exactly.
So let's touch a little bit on that and sort of that transition when you go from an idea to like figuring out what kind of structure you need to actually get to a business.
Right. Well, I mean, there's so much that I'm seeing right now is kind of the transition from the side hustle into full-time. And that's actually a lot of the people that I'm helping now. A lot of my clients are consultants. They are fractional C-suite executives. And they're taking the experiences that they have in corporate and they're translating it into their own thing. And what I always tell them is, you are now a business. Even if you're an individual that's selling your knowledge, you are now a business and you need to act accordingly. You're a service provider. It's B2B. You're not an employee. So I always say, when an employee gets a job at a company, the company sends the employment agreement, NDA, maybe a couple of other things surrounding IP, etc., and you sign it. But when the company hires AT&T sends the contracts. So you need a base of contracts for yourself as a B2B service provider, whether you're a service provider or a vendor or you provide physical products. You need your suite of contracts that designate exactly how you operate as a business, what rights you have, and what liabilities you will not take on, most importantly.
Right.
And you need to be delivering those to your potential clients, aside from, of course, the entity formation, whether that be an LLC or an S Corp or just a general corporation. And then, of course, your operating agreements around that, which is the rules of how your company operates through and through.
Right.
So how do you go from an idea to all of those things? Because I talk to people who are going from idea to those things and they feel very overwhelmed because it sounds like a lot of information.
It does, even for us, we're in the field.
But it's actually just a consolidated package of products. It's a package of paperwork. You need your entity, very simple to form on your own if you don't want to pay an attorney to do it, or you can pay an attorney to do it. You need the rule book by which that entity operates, and then you need 3 to 6 contracts depending on what it is that you do.
Right.
and it's an extension of your offers. So as a consultant, if you have package A, B, and C, you need a master service agreement that covers those three things, and then a statement of work for A, B, and C. That's how I like to do it.
Okay.
Because it's simple and it keeps the main crux of all the rules in that MSA, right? So I think I get super into it here. Did I get away from the question?
No, I think it's helpful because you have an idea that you have to seek guidance in what type of structure you're going to create. And then, okay, now I have a structure, but what do I do with it? Especially when it's okay when it's just one person. I mean, I don't want to say it's okay, but it's understandable when it's one person. You're like, well, do I really need an operating agreement? But the reality is nowadays, if you go open up a bank account for an LLC, what do they ask you for?
They ask you for
an
your
operating
documents,
agreement. Also, I think we need to move beyond a reactive state because so many people say, oh, I'll get to it when it becomes an issue. But the reality is it opens up a can of worms when you don't have
can't predict the issue. You can't predict the issue if you don't have the paperwork in place. So you don't know what you're going to get. Now, if you have the paperwork in place, you can always predict just from the experience of operating businesses, right? Listen, this is what people will push back on. This is where you might have an issue. But I can tell you what those issues will be. It'll be a short list.
Right.
You come to me after, and that happens a lot too.
Yes.
I have people that they come, they speak to me, I advise them, I tell them this is what you should have, and they're like, okay, I'll think about it. Then they come back and they're like, hey, I wish I had done that thing that you offered originally.
Absolutely. And
you will be seeing me. Yes.
It's usually more expensive to be reactive rather than proactive.
Of course.
I guess, what are some tips that you would give to your average, entrepreneur that's first starting out? What are some tips to avoid finding themselves beyond obviously creating documents, beyond finding themselves in litigation or in an issue?
Very, very careful communication.
Okay.
The number one issue that we see across small business owners is an expectation on one side that was not properly managed on the other side. So the client thinks they didn't get what they should have gotten, and the entrepreneur believes they did provide what they meant to provide.
Right.
But there's a miscommunication in the middle. A lot of that is unspoken. It's just, oh, I went to see so-and-so and they got this done and I hired an attorney or I hired a service provider to do that, but I didn't get the same thing as so-and-so.
Right.
And those are things that are just out of your control completely as an entrepreneur. Like, well, how could you expect same thing from me as someone else got from someone else? And that is where the communication is. And communication is done via agreements.
Right.
And so if you cannot afford an agreement, if you're just starting out, an email will suffice. A very crystal clear email. Provide frequently asked questions that you see.
That's a good one.
That you see from clients that you've had in the past. What is everyone asking? And if everyone's asking, then you're not communicating enough that answer, that information that clearly they need to make a decision to purchase the services or the products, right? So I would say communication is key because that is contractual disputes are issues of communication.
Right. You can expect when you run a business that you at some point in your trajectory will run into something having to do with contractual disputes.
Yeah.
What I also want to, there's so many topics we could talk about. I think we share our understanding that creating a brand in today's market is so important. I know we're like we're so hesitant to get in front of the camera.
Yeah, you're really good at it.
Oh,
I'm so impressed.
But honestly,
and the consistency.
It's moving past the fear.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely.
Because if I can negotiate, I will you'll negotiate myself out.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But so many people are hesitant to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think social media is going away. I don't think it. I think it's going to be the opposite. We're seeing the studies come out that it's going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry within the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that entrepreneurs hesitant to get on camera or create a brand?
Well, I'll come from a place of very close experience. When I left mergers and acquisitions, before I started the firm, I had a 6-month stint doing entertainment law, working with creators. And I'm going to tell you that the next big purchase from private equity firms is media companies led by creators.
Yeah.
And when I say a media company, I'm talking about a YouTube channel and a podcast. And do you want to know the figures that we're talking?
Mm-hmm.
Upwards of $100 million.
I'm sure, yeah.
So it's not just that there's value in it. It's that there's connectivity in it.
Mm-hmm.
These private equity firms or whomever are buying these media channels to reach the audience. And if these people are reaching the audience via YouTube and podcasts, Instagram, TikTok, right. So it's not like back in the day where you can just put your information in the yellow book and create generational wealth for your family via that single advertisement.
Because that used to work.
Not even close.
Right.
And then we're talking about the age of, you can opt out of commercials in your streaming services. I do. Mm-hmm. Right? Commercials are also very expensive to produce and then launch. I mean, social media is free.
Right.
It's at your fingertips, and the algorithms are designed to draw people who are interested in your content to your content.
Right.
And so those are people that are small business owners for you and I, or people in need of legal education and understanding of what it is that affects them and doesn't affect them. I mean, it's designed
right.
to bring potential clients to you. Mm-hmm. And so you have to put it out there to do it. However, it's time consuming. It's hard to do very, very well. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's become one of those things, and I see this a lot. I see a lot of videos like this where it's, as a small business owner, I need to be a manager.
Right.
I need to be an operator. Mm-hmm. I need to basically be the legal arm of my business. I need to be the accounting arm of my business, bookkeeping a lot of times. And now I've got to be the marketing arm of my business.
Correct.
Because social media marketing has now come to a point where we understand the value better because it is so time consuming, especially to edit and edit well. Mm-hmm. And so those things are also becoming more and more expensive. Mm-hmm. So it's not, a lot of small business owners don't have a ton of discretionary income to spend on marketing.
Right.
Or legal.
Correct.
Let alone marketing, right? So, I mean, the best thing you can do though is, like we said, just take action in the face of fear and just talk about the things that you're passionate about. When you open a small business, generally speaking, it's something that you love to do so much that you want to wake up in the morning and look back in that little file of issues and deal with that because it's worth it to you.
Right.
So get on there and talk about those things that you love and why you love them and who you help and how you help them. I think for me, my law firm has basically a very strong educational arm. It's very important to me that small business owners not only walk away with very strong documents that protect them, but an understanding of the documents.
Right.
That was the thing, again, that drove me to law school, was a lack of knowledge. And so I want to provide that to my clients so that they don't have the contract, send it out, get it signed, and when an issue arises, they have to come back and be like, what does this mean? Right. We know what it means, and now we can deal with it, right? I think that there is a spirit of service in putting content out. Mm-hmm. It is part of...
Or there should be, I think.
There should be, right? Putting content out, especially educational content, allows you to share with the people that you intend to help information that is helpful to them.
Right.
And I think if you look at it from that perspective, where it's not about advertising yourself, because I think a lot of people, it's like, it's embarrassing to put yourself out there and be like, hey, I'm the best at this, right? It's like, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You have those inner thoughts, right? Everyone has that. But I think if you put this stuff out there, you're like, hey, I just want to help, and here it is. I think that you come off more confident. Mm-hmm. And also people feel like, wow, this person cares. Because you do. And that's a good way to show it. So I don't think we have a choice, sister.
I know. Yeah, it's just, that's the luck of the draw. We ended up...
It's timing. God, I wish for the Yellow Book days so bad.
I know. In some ways, that would be so much easier. And so how do you, you've passed the entity stage.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on it already, but what sort of documents should a business person have in place already before that, client comes to you?
Right.
What documents do you think that would be necessary?
Right. So if you're a service provider, you definitely want to have a master services agreement. It is a very clear indicator of everything that the client can expect. Like I talked about communication. Mm-hmm. It's everything the client can expect to get out of the services, what they're going to pay, how they're going to pay, all of the nooks and crannies of the client experience in the MSA. If you're going to hire contractors, you need a contractor agreement. If you're going to hire employees, you need an employment agreement. You want to have those in place, especially the contractor agreement, before you bring anybody in and you give them any money. Number one, the most important, a lot of people don't realize that in Florida, you can accidentally form a partnership. So it's very important that you have language in your agreement when you intend to split profits with someone that says very clearly that there is no intention to form a partnership. And when it's a contractor, that there's no employee relationship, there's no agency, right? It's very easy, and something I see it's so often is the misclassification of a contractor.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Right? That's super common. And so understanding of what a contractor is versus an employee, also very important. Outside of the documentation, you need to, as a business owner, understand that. ChatGPT explains that very well. Okay?
Or they can call you.
Or you can call me, I know, but I want you to recognize, and I'm sure you can also find like a lot of legal articles out there if you don't want to trust the AI, but it's that understanding. So master services agreement, employment, contractor agreement, NDA, if what you're doing is, if you have a lot of intellectual property that you're trying to keep confidential. What else?
Non-solicitation.
Oh, yeah, but that should be part of also the MSA and things, or the employee. Yeah, non-solicitation, non-compete. And also a non-compete should be drafted by an attorney because every state is different. And so you can't just you can never open a business like mine, ever, because that's thrown out.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that is the core package. Again, the operating agreement, very important.
Absolutely.
And if you have a partnership or a partner in an LLC, please. I know. That's so painful.
I know.
That's the worst for me, because it's one thing to have a disagreement with a client.
I know.
That's almost common, expected, right? It happens, and there's money that's being exchanged, and that's it. But when it's a partnership, it's like this dream that you've developed with this other person or family member or friend, and the communication is lacking in the documentation, and now the entire relationship burns up.
That's such I see it so frequently, and people are like, oh, like in my circumstance, I run a business with my husband.
Yeah.
And it just works.
Yeah.
But I have seen so many,
Of course.
that do not work.
Yeah.
And end in divorce, and there's various reasons. Or if it's even not married, like you said, family. I think having a clearly defined operating agreement or whatever document is necessary for the structure that you've created is so critical.
Yes.
Like, do not wait for 5 years down the line when the problem already exists.
It's day one, because things change.
Right.
You become more successful, or you take on debts.
Correct.
And it's now who made that choice, right? Like, there will always be a revisionist history on both sides when that problem arises. No, because you said, and no, because you did, and no, because I said.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
And none of that matters.
Right.
Right? It's everything you have written down or what you don't have written down. You're going to be splitting those issues 50-50, right? So it's so important to define that. And that is when I say communication, I think a lot of people are like, okay, so we just talk it out. No, we need to write it down.
I know.
You need an agreement. It needs to be crystal clear. So,
Right, because then it's hard. How are you going to prove
it's impossible.
what happened? Then it's a he said, she said, he said, whatever the case may be. It's just very difficult.
And it's painful. Because even if no one is lying, maybe you remember it differently.
Right.
And now that person that you love, that person that you were building with, is a liar.
Right.
It's like, it gets really personal, right? There's no way to keep that.
And if you
business.
thought that legal services were expensive before, the reality is, in disputes, the people that come out the best are the attorneys. Let's be honest.
Yes. I don't think people understand. Look, you can get a solid agreement in the $2,000 range, right? $1,000. It depends on what it is, too.
Right.
You can get really affordable agreements, and affordable, of course, is an issue of perspective, right?
Right.
Litigation. There's no such thing as affordable litigation.
No, absolutely not.
And I want people to understand, it's not like, oh, it gets expensive when I go to court. No, you may never get to court.
Correct.
And it will still cost you $50,000.
Correct.
Conservatively,
100%.
reaching a settlement.
Yep.
I don't think people really understand the differentiation between, like you said, proactive versus reactive. And also, reactive generally is more expensive because you're desperate.
Right.
you're terrified.
Yeah, you're up against the wall.
Exactly. If this business feeds your entire family and then the families of your employees, that feeling, I mean, I've been there.
Right.
Oh, yeah, you really got to love what you're doing to be an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I think that there's two types of individuals, and one that can handle that
Pressure.
feeling of, you know, pressure, risk,
Yes.
Fear, and an individual that needs the consistency of a 9 to 5, that needs the paycheck. And I don't think one is better than the other.
I don't.
Because I think you can grow wealth and be successful in this alternative.
Yes.
And I think people have this misconception of, oh, being an entrepreneur is so fun. It's the best thing in the world. But the reality is you have to be okay with everything I just said.
So you know what it is? It's that there's give and take in everything, right? For me, I would rather have the pressure of entrepreneurship over the pressure of a supervisor.
Right.
It's not worth it to me.
Choose your hard.
Exactly. Choose your hard. But on the employee side, you have the consistency of a salary and the pressure of a supervisor.
Right.
And maybe the salary is more valuable to you than the supervisor.
Right.
Right. And that's okay. For me, I have this inner turmoil when someone tells me what to do, even though it's, even if I wanted to do it. And now you're like, hey, you need to do this. I'm like, oh, I can't do that.
No, I know. Unless it like somehow magically aligns, that you find an individual that sees eye to eye with you, right? You know, and even then that's really difficult.
It's difficult. It's just my personality. It's not to say that, you know, there's nothing wrong with enjoying that dynamic. It's a structure provided by someone else. I love a structure that's already built out.
Right.
For me, I need to be at the top of that structure for it to make sense to me. That's just my problem. But it also has pushed me in the direction where I'm meant to be.
Right.
So it's like, it
works out.
It works for me.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I feel like we could go on, like every one of those topics could be like hour-long podcasts, but hopefully you'll come back on and we can take on a different subject. Thank you so much for joining me.
I've had such a good time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Awesome. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found it helpful, please subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any upcoming episodes.